Hey, I'm Mark,
And I'm Craig.
and this is Songwriter's Tales.
Yes, it is.
And today, this is part two of our discussion with Bill Warmuth. And Craig, tell him who Bill Warmuth is.
Bill Warmuth owns Artisan Guitars, and he is the guy that has Tommy Emmanuel, Peter Frampton, and Keith Urban, people like that, come into his place
He
and get
probably
their
has them. He
guitars.
probably has them in his cell phone. He probably has their
I know
cell
he
phone
does
numbers.
for a fact. He does. And he knows everything about guitars. This
This is
man
so cool.
is,
This is a really
yeah,
but it's not just about guitars. It's
no,
about the soul of the instrument. And he really kind of goes into some pretty cool stories about kind of what's about with this guitar and the soul of this guitar and
that's it.
how it pertains to songwriting. So it's definitely going to be worth a listen.
What do you say, Mark?
Let's do it.
You mentioned Tommy. I'm going to go there because we've traded stories a few times. He and I have that when you got out on the road touring in the 70s, your go-to choice would have been either Takamine or Ovation.
Mm-hmm.
The two brands of guitars
right.
that came with a factory pickup.
Right.
And I thought he had started with Takamine, even though, again, as a child and as a young adult, he played Maton Guitars. It's a homegrown brand. He was doing a lot of studio work in Australia until he got out in the world touring. And he corrected me because I started with Ovation. That didn't last long. I didn't stay with it long. I went with Takamine. Regardless, at the time, Takamine had a superior design for electronics. Anything aftermarket wouldn't come close to something you could retrofit to an acoustic guitar and have it sound as good. And that was an important market for those two brands. So somewhere along the line, 30 plus years ago, 35 years ago, maybe, Tommy gets back into working with Maton Guitars to develop their pickup system. Not the engineering aspect. That's not his cup of tea. His cup of tea is obviously what he can hear and the sound he wants to recreate that the guitar makes. And it has been a long span of time, a lot of development. I don't know all the technical details. I don't need to. I can just tell you that by comparison of all the things I witnessed from all the other pickup companies. The development has come a long way, and it's, I guess, fifth generation, to be fair. And at the same time, coincidentally, really, Tommy collaborated with Udo Rosner, who was a co-founder of AER Amplifiers, to be able to, if this is a better pickup system, plug it into an acoustic amplifier you could tour with that could actually, get the sound out of it that the pickup's capable of doing.
Yeah.
So, and it's been through 5 generations in 30 years. That's a story nobody talks about. You had the Compact 60 AER 60, the AR 60-1, -2, -3, -4, ultimately the TE model. 6-7 years ago, Udo sells his stock in AER, starts a new company, is coincidentally the Udo Rosner company, his name, and he takes his own Compact 60 amplifier, the same footprint, the same 2-channel layout, and he hot rods it to a 75-watt amp. And that's what Tommy's been touring with since 2019.
It's a monster, too. I have one.
And it's perfectly made into the pickup system. If you think about the, two companies not collaborating, but through Tommy, they've been developed in syncopation. It's really an unusual story.
I've got to interject something because I do a lot of gigs, between 30 and 40 gigs a month, and I am in different rooms, different places, and it's so funny because with the Maton, if there's a guitar player out there I will lay money on it. They will come up to me and say, "What are you playing?" And it's
Or a
not just
sound guy, a
Mm.
guy on the board.
A board guy, yeah,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
exactly.
and I mean, sometimes I'll use the cape. Is it DeCapo or DeCapo?
I'm not sure. I'm
Okay,
not sure why he named it that.
I know it's kind of weird, but I'll use the amp sometimes. A lot of times I won't. I'll just be plugged straight in to my EV
Direct to
or
the board.
my QSC speaker, and they'll come up and say, "My gosh, that guitar sounds amazing." I said, "Yeah, it does." And it's those electronics in it. Mark and I were talking. I mean,
Craig was bragging on the electronics before you came on. He was like, "I don't know what they do, man, but it is freaking amazing."
yeah, it is, and it is the most consistent and if you make a micro adjustment on it, it is. But I'm telling you, there's plenty of guitar players that just go, "Man, I'm going to save up my money," and they've got your number, so you're gonna hear from them. You are.
Yeah.
Okay, so we mentioned Tommy Emmanuel, and I believe you told me you traveled with him some. Did you not?
Well, a little bit.
Am I making that up?
No, he had a notion back in I think late 2018. He was doing a show at the Ryman here locally in Nashville, Ryman Auditorium,
Okay.
and his manager Brian called me and said, "Hey, Tommy is doing the Ryman on Saturday. He would like some Maton guitars in the lobby." And I had a long pause on the phone. I said, "Brian, I don't think they'll let you put guitars in the lobby at the Ryman." But he goes, "Oh, yes, they will. I've already called them." I said, "Oh, okay, we'll be there."
He's a good manager.
Yeah. So we show up and have a fold-out table. Like we have a display table that we take to the Chet Atkins Appreciation Society convention every year with a Maton, tablecloth and stands for guitars and all that sort of thing. So we're there in the lobby. There's 2,600 people trailing through the lobby looking for their seats. A lot of them wondering, what are guitars doing here in the lobby? So we did have people asking questions about it, which I thought was an interesting notion. Tommy never did, talk to me about that before the show, but there we are. Peter Frampton was in the audience, I believe, as a ticket holder, and I think that introduced him to the brand, the Maton guitar brand, because he went backstage and played Tommy's guitar, and then got his first one before he went on his farewell tour in the spring.
Oh.
So anyway, I got the notion that this is right. This is something that he's proud of to be associated with. We're certainly proud of, but nobody knows what the hell they never heard of the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So and I love marketing challenges. So anyway, this gets a little far-fetched, but it's the truth. So Nissan moved their headquarters here in Franklin. I don't know, a few years before that. We have a Collins client that's a vice president there at the time, and I went and bought a Nissan van. I let the team, the marketing team in Australia, design a wrap for the van. And it's got Tommy's picture on the side. It's got a big Maton guitar on the side. It's got a Maton guitar on the roof. And so they send me the digital files. I have somebody here in Franklin do the wrap. I talked to this vice president who's a customer, and I said, can I come over to the building, use the building for a backdrop? I want to make a 60-second Instagram video. And he goes, well, do you have a videographer? I go, not really. Well, we have a whole floor of photographers, videographers. You bring the van over here. We have an underground passageway and a room that we do videos, and pictures and that sort of thing. Sure. And so literally we loaded and unloaded the van, I don't know, 4 times or 5 times in the course of over an hour and a half, 2 hours, to get a 60-second Instagram video.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was that we should show up at Tommy's shows with the van. So I get his schedule where he's touring that spring. We're trying to reach out to the venues, that sort of thing. A lot of people were like, "No, you're crazy. You're not bringing guitars here," whatever. But a lot of it, we were very successful in having guitars at his shows, which was
cool.
fun.
That's
a lot of fun.
Cool.
And we'd show up. We'd have a nice display, Maton display with Maton logos, that sort of thing. Passing out a lot of brochures. If you're doing the pre-event VIP thing, you might end up being the photographer with the iPhones for the people who want to come, the
Sure.
VIP ticket, that sort of thing. So it was a lot of fun. So,
That
yeah.
is cool. So we got Tommy Emmanuel, and then you just mentioned Peter Frampton. I know that Garth uses the guitars. I know that who else is it? Keith Urban uses the guitars, and there's a whole list of people that use them that aren't necessarily in Nashville. I know
Well,
some
I bet
English
you
players.
some studio player. I bet you a lot of studio players use them too that people don't even know. I mean, wouldn't know their
That's
name,
true.
but I bet you
Yeah.
they hear them on
Yeah.
records.
Pat Burgesson,
Yeah.
Tom Bukovic. But let me clarify that while Garth is really a Takamine guy.
Yeah, that's right.
He does endorse Takamine because he toured with them for years.
No question. And we got a call in 2019, I think, from one of his staff people. Could we bring some Maton guitars down to the Bridgestone Arena, their last day of practice before their stadium tour? Which I thought was a prank call for one of my employees. So we put 3 guitars in the van and took it down there. Went through security, and there's giant stage into this underground room, and the band was playing. And Garth gave the band a lunch break and said, I want to hear these guitars. So can you bring these guitars over here? I want to play them. He's sitting on the edge of the stage, his legs dangling, and he's clutching his Takamine guitar with his wireless plug in. And I approached him and I said, why Maton? Oh, you're clutching his guitar. You're absolutely right. Well, my buddy Keith was down here yesterday and he plugged his guitar in, and these guys went crazy over the sound of it. And I want them to have some good guitars for the tour. And I thought, well, that's the right answer. So he played all 3 guitars, sang James Taylor songs to me for about 20 or 30 minutes, and he bought all 3 guitars for the band. And he said, if you do social media stuff, you could tell people I love the guitar. I'm not switching, but I love the rise. We don't do that. We're not going to do that. But he was a real gentleman about it, and it was great. But he and Keith Urban are good friends, and they do influence each other a lot. And that was Keith Urban that came the day before and plugged his guitar in, and they all heard that plugged in, and they go like, oh yeah, I can have one of those. So
Yeah. I'll take one.
That's how that
Thank you.
came about.
That's cool.
So yeah.
Those are cool stories. Mark, what you got, brother? I see your brains.
Well, no, I was just going to ask you, and this is kind of geeky, but it's we went there with electronics, so I figure, I mean, what is it? Is it a different bracing? What kind of wood are they made with? Are they made with the same stuff that everybody else is making, or is it some kind of a cool magic wood from Australia that nobody knows about?
That's interesting. Well, I think take the broader view for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
We look at the U.S. market, and we've got guitar builders at all different levels all around the country, out in the woods, making 10 guitars a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got people like Taylor Guitars making 1,500 a week. And the wood supply side of our industry, which is the back side of it, we have resources in this country that can supply every level of builder volume.
Mm-hmm.
And good, better, best quality woods.
Sure.
A lot of imported exotic woods that, if you look around the world, I don't think the markets are the same. Meaning that if you look at Australia as a huge continent, their wood supply industry, I think, is nothing like it is here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's somewhat, work with what you got. I think.
Sure.
That's maybe not a fair statement, but I think Bill May, developed the 808 body shape, which is unique. Nobody makes anything quite shaped like that. It somewhat resembles a modern 0014 fret.
Mm-hmm.
So it's smaller than an orchestra model, and it's deeper at the end block than an OM.
Okay.
a standard OM by, Martin Standards or Collins or Santa Cruz, anybody I can think of that makes a modern shaped orchestra model. They're probably so identical, you can almost interchange the guitars within anybody's case. They're the same shape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're 4.0 inches at the end block deep, front and back distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guitar building 101, moving the top and the back further apart will enhance the bass. Think about it. Moving it closer together will diminish the bass. So it's part of the voicing of the guitar.
Okay.
Okay, so we go back to the resources and look at, what was available. We in this country, we have on the rosewood side of life versus mahogany. We have Indian rosewood at the bottom of the food chain. We have Brazilian rosewood at the top of the food chain. Albeit these days it needs to be CITES certified, but we've got cocobolo, we've got all these exotic tone woods that fall under the rosewood side of life. I think the distance and the support team on the ground in Australia didn't have those resources. Also, traditionally, I think Honduran mahogany around the Depression era was still in vogue, not short supply. Did still take, I think, 200 years or whatever to grow a tree, and we used a lot of it in the 50s and 60s for furniture and veneers, but nobody thought to plant any. So really it's more, or I should say, in less supply growth-wise than Indian rosewood. So you take that view, that worldview, and then look at what Maton builds their guitars from. The majority of back and side woods are going to be native hardwoods.
Okay.
So they fall into the mahogany side of that rosewood versus mahogany discussion. And they are, Victorian blackwood, which is an acacia family wood. It's a sister to our koa, but it's denser than koa. And while I think koa makes a great ukulele, a high-pitched instrument, it's very pretty, or can be, but it doesn't make a particularly robust acoustic guitar. I say this from my experience commissioning a lot of custom-built guitars that koa back and sides.
Right.
Very expensive guitars.
Yeah.
And then they also use Tasmanian myrtle. Some of those trees are hundreds of years old, and they use Queensland maple, which the Tommy Emmanuel signature model is made from. We American players, the first word out of your mouth saying maple. Oh, I don't want a maple guitar. Well, their experience has been North American big leaf maple, which sounds different than Queensland maple. Right? If you ask Collins to build a maple guitar, they may not tell you, but it's going to be German maple back and sides. It's not North American big leaf maple.
Why is that?
The density of the wood comes into play, and the surface hardness, the Janka hardness, is a scientific term. So density has to do with the bass response, the full body warmth sound, in one way to describe it, overtones, natural reverb, etc. Lighter weight woods don't have that level of response. They're kind of shallow, not very loud, don't project well, that sort of thing. But these other hardwoods, I think that Bill May or the May family was working with, make the 808 4 7/8 inches deep at the end block. That's a dreadnought depth guitar.
Who is Steve Dorff? Well, you might not know now, but you will, because on episodes 10 through 13, you're going to find out about the man who wrote I Cross My Heart for George Strait. He wrote Through the Years for Kenny Rogers, Every Which Way But Loose. He's written themes and soundtracks for movies with Clint Eastwood. He's written the TV sitcom Growing Pains soundtrack. Check it out, Steve Dorff on Songwriter's Tales with Mark and Craig.